Today's episode is without a doubt the most common request I've received about the Digital Orthodontist since starting it. So you may be asking yourself, Kyle, why did you wait until episode 20 to cover it? Well, let me ask you a question. Why is the McRib a limited time only item? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Orthodontist. I'm Dr. Kyle Fagala, and today we're talking Facebook advertising. But first, let me apologize to those of you out there whose tummies are grumbling with discussions of the world's most delicious sandwich, the McDonald's McRib. We're praying all together that it will come back soon and that it will stay on the menu permanently. That's what we're praying for. Of course, I'm kidding. It's a disgusting sandwich. If you like it, you are a disgusting person, and I'm sorry. Kidding. But we're going to talk Facebook advertising. And why are we talking Facebook advertising? Because literally everyone can benefit from it. It is both simple and inexpensive, which is a great partnership. But first, let's talk a little bit about what I think Facebook advertising is like. It's a little bit like if in 1965 I'd come to you and I'd said, you can have an advertisement on prime time every night of the week on the most popular station that exists. Would you do it? Now, your answer is probably like, well, probably not because it would be very expensive. But what I'm telling you is that advertising on Facebook is pretty similar to that. It's not exactly the same thing, of course. The audience in some sense is smaller, but it's also more focused. And everyone is on Facebook. Get these stats. Facebook is the second most popular website in the world, certainly in the US, just right behind Google. And they have 2 billion monthly active users. 2 billion. There's only like 7 billion in the world. They have 2 billion on Facebook. Most adults in the U.S. spend 35 minutes a day browsing their timelines, seeing what ex-boyfriends are up to, and then maybe arguing about 1-cent tax increases on their stupid local community groups. That's what we do on Facebook, and we post photos and so on and so forth. We also see ads that come across our timelines, and so if everyone's eyes are there, shouldn't your post be there? And I would say there's not necessarily a bad way to advertise on Facebook. Of course, there are some extreme examples of, it's probably not a good ad. But there are a few tips that can take a decent ad and make it a great ad. So we're actually going to go to the computer. We're going to knock this out. I'm going to show you how I do Facebook advertising. Okay, so you're going to go to your Facebook page, and there are a couple different ways you can advertise, but we're really going to be focusing on advertising a post that already exists. And so this is a post that performed really well, actually. It had 8,500 people reached. You can kind of see the reaction to it, 1,300 post clicks. That's really good on a gold braces post that we did. And so the simplest way to do that is to click on Boost Post, and many of you have probably done that before. You can have an audience that's already saved. I'll show you how to make here in a second. You can also run the promotion on Instagram. You can pick your budget here. You can do kind of whatever you want to do. And you can run it for a certain number of days or run it to a certain time. And it'll show you how much it's going to spend. It'll also show you how much you're going to reach in terms of people, what it's going to look like on mobile, what it'll look like on Instagram, and all that good stuff. And so that's a really simple way to do it. It's not necessarily the best way to do it, and so I want to show you maybe a better way to do this. And so the way to do that is to go up to this caret at the upper right-hand side, and you're going to click on Create Ads. Now you can really only do this on a desktop computer, so that's where you should do it. And once this loads up, I will show you the way that I typically do it. The way that you do your ad, it really depends on kind of what you're after. And so typically I'm going to click on engagement. Now of course you can see there's a lot of other stuff you can do. Some of them won't apply to us, but engagement is kind of the one that I'm typically picking. You can name your campaign, so we're going to name it Gold Braces. And then we'll continue on through here. I also name the ad set, since it's just one thing, it's just a gold braces post. And here's where you can create an audience, okay? You can import an audience, so you can have like an Excel spreadsheet of maybe some of your best patients. You can insert that into Facebook, and then it will find kind of a look-alike audience. That's a really cool thing to do. The simplest way to do it, though, is that you're going to want to pick geography, age, and gender. When I think of these three categories, I try and think of what I consider my avatar client. So who am I after? Who is going to have 2.5 kids and enough money to purchase braces? It's typically going to be a female between the ages of 28 and 45, and so that's typically what I zone in on. Now, if you have an ad that's maybe more appropriate for teenagers or more appropriate for men or geriatrics or something, you'd obviously want to change those. But let's say that it's for my typical avatar client. And what you could do is you could put some zip codes in here. That's what I usually do, but let me just make it easy, and we'll put our city, which is Germantown. Now, plus or minus 25 miles is going to be a pretty big region, and maybe that's too much. And so let's maybe make it 10 miles. It's actually why I prefer to do zip codes, because it's a little bit more precise. And so maybe you take your 5 or 6 best zip codes, and then you can select that area. But this is not bad. You can also kind of move it around your little area here if you want to. For age, like I said, even though we have patients of all ages, who's making the buying selection is typically going to be the mother in the family. And so I typically go maybe 28 to 42 women, okay? You can actually up here say, instead of everyone in this location, you can say people who live in this location, because I really don't want people who are recently here, who are traveling. You don't want to waste any of your advertising budget. I also will typically, or sometimes rather, I'll do English speaking. Just because the ad's going to be in English doesn't mean it's against anyone who speaks any other language. It's just another way to kind of refine it down. And then here you can get into detailed targeting. You can do all kinds of stuff if you want to target different categories. I typically just keep it a little bit more general, especially on a post like this where there's really no specific interest that would apply. And so then you can save this audience if you want to. And so I'll save this audience as TDO audience. And then that will be there. So then if I want to boost posts or I want to use this audience again, it'll be there waiting on me. Now here's another thing. You can edit placements. And so I'll spend a little bit of time here showing you kind of what I like to do and what I don't like to do. I do like for it to run on Instagram, so I will keep that active. The audience network I don't necessarily prefer because it's going to put it out on different apps and different websites, and I don't know what it's going to be associated with, and I don't like the idea of that. So I usually eliminate that. And then on Facebook you have several options. It's not going to be a video, so it won't even use this placement. Right column is one of those ones I typically do take away because I don't really pay attention to the right column very often. And I'm going to take this away. I'm going to take this away too. So it's really going to just be in feed. So I really just want it in the timelines on mobile and on desktop. And then I want it on Instagram. You may not want it on Instagram for certain ones, or you may. Now on budget, I typically like to do a lifetime budget. So let's do a lifetime budget of 40 bucks. And I don't want it to run for a month. That's way too long. And so I'd really just rather it run for, let's say, a couple days. And so we're going to do a really strong kind of shotgun approach. And we're going to run it from right now until, let's say, tomorrow night at 11:30. If you know anything about when your audience is online, you can find that out in Facebook Insights. But it's typically going to be heaviest from about 6 to 10 p.m. That's when most of your audience is going to be online. So I like to have it in there. And then you have this option of how do you want to optimize it. Do you want it based on post engagement, impressions, or daily unique reach? This kind of gets a little bit more detailed than we're going to go after, but I typically want to pay for the opposite thing than what I want. And what I mean by that is if I want a lot of clicks, then maybe I will pay for impressions. If I want a lot of people to see it, maybe I will set it to pay when I just get engagement. If you don't want to think through all that stuff, one of the easiest ways to get a lot of reach and a lot of engagement is just to do it on post engagement and let them automatically do it for you. If you want to get a little fancier, you want to play around with some different ways of doing this, you can set your own custom budget, and you can actually make it where you get charged per post engagement. And sometimes that does a really good job, especially if you have a post that you don't think will generate a lot of clicks, but it means that it will serve it to a lot of people. Of course, if you don't want to deal with all that, just put it at automatic, and typically their system will do a good job. Of course, Facebook's in business to make money for Facebook, so kind of take that with a grain of salt. The rest of this, you can schedule it for different times, and so if you have certain times of the day that you want to do it, you can do that. For me, I usually simplify it on this part and just run ads all the time. And so we'll hit continue. Then it will give you the opportunity to decide which post you want, which this was our most recent post, so we'll pick that. If you want to do a different one, you can do that, but we're going to do this post. And then Instagram, we've already synced that up. If you've not done that, you'll need to sync it up with your Instagram page. And then at the end of this, you'll place the order. And so in placing the order, usually it only takes them a few minutes to kind of go through and approve the ad. If they don't approve it, they'll come back with some reasoning for that. But typically, if you have a straightforward post with a nice caption, with not too many hashtags and not too much text on the post, it will be approved. And so at the end of that, you can actually come back into your ads area and you can see how the post does. In this area, you get a lot of metrics, a lot of statistics. And really the goal is to work on developing the best way to do ads in your office. But you got to start somewhere, and so this is a good place to start. Okay, so hopefully now you understand how to do Facebook advertising. If you have other questions, because obviously there's a lot more to discuss when it comes to this topic than what we were able to cover today, hit me up on the Digital Orthodontist Facebook group. If you're not already a member, go and do it now. It's facebook.com/group/ The Digital Ortho, or you can just search for it. That's all we have for today. Really appreciate you for tuning in. From all of us here at the Digital Orthodontist, I'm Dr. Kyle Fagala, signing off.